Right, we'll kick off. Very warm welcome to everyone this morning. Thank you so much for joining our third Grassroots Disability Football Networking session. We're delighted so far with attendance and conversations we've had, and very much looking forward to today's session as well. We also hope you're all enjoying the World Cup, an incredible spectacle happening across 3 countries at the moment. So yeah, we hope you're all enjoying that and not staying up all night watching the games. This is our, as normal, your sort of season pros at the webinars. So please go on mute. Please do use the chat. We welcome any thoughts, observations that you want to share on the webinar or anything you want to signpost individuals to. We have recorded all the webinars, and they will appear sometime next week on the Grassroots community page. So if you do miss anything, or colleagues do, and you can certainly share them more widely across your networks. So welcome to you all, as I said, all 55 countries, our disability organisations, the Disability Working Group. Daniel will be doing the summary today, so thank you in advance, Daniel. Vlad and Shemik and Jeff are on the call today. Apologies from Les, he's running a under-17 boys tournament, UEFA tournament in North Wales. And a very special welcome to David Faulkner, who will be our thought leader today, MBE and ex-Olympian, helping us think about influencing. So just a quick reminder of why we're here. We want to try and create that community of practice across Europe to give you the chance to share your progress and best practice, and also to discuss together the significant challenges that are still and barriers that still exist to giving everyone a chance to play football and to be the best they can be. And I'm going to hand over to Vlad now, just to quickly remind us of what happened on June the 12th.
Good morning to everybody. So thank you very much for joining us for the third part of this disability webinar and the disability football webinar. And now what we're going to provide you the information about one of the project run by Danish Football Association called Part of the Team. This project won the UEFA Grassroots Award 2 years ago. So before we carry on, I would like to ask Helen to show you the video of this project, please.
There's many reasons why sport is important. Trying to get more young kids with disabilities to play football is creating possibilities for every kind of person.
There's been a big request from around Denmark to start up this program. You can be together across gender, across age. It includes everybody.
I can't see with this eye. Like it's 100% blind.
He didn't really want to participate in any sports at all.
We are looking at the kids as kids, not the diagnosis.
The boy I met 2 years ago was fighting, yelling. Now he's actually having fun. He's a giant goofball.
With my boy on this team, it's one of the best things I have done.
Be a part of this community, be a part of a team, part of a family. To receive this is a very huge recognition, and that's absolutely fantastic.
Thank you very much, Helen. So before we carry on, I would like to provide a little bit description of what this project was all about. So the Part of the Team was founded as a strong partnership between Danish Football Association, its regional association, and Parasport Denmark. Furthermore, the project is followed closely by an advisory board consisting of the national disability organizations, such as associations of Autism and also ADHD Association. So then this Danish FA project is on with the national project manager, Kenneth, head of the project and analysis. So during the development of the project, external experts on disability were brought in to ensure the quality and suitability of the different initiatives, such as coach education and so on. The experts are continuously being used where there is a need for the special knowledges or inputs. So through the collaboration with the municipalities, special schools and other community partners, the project built strong local support, ensuring that the clubs do not tackle this important work alone. The cornerstone of the project is specialized coach education designed to equip the club coaches, volunteers with the skills and insight needed to create inclusive training environment. The project aims at including and improving already existing football offer for disability kids, youngsters, as well as the supporting grassroots club in starting up the branding new football offer. So the project, the power of the team, powerfully reflect the Danish FA vision to use the unified spirit of the football to address societal challenges and take and social responsibility. So the project is aligned with the strategic grassroots mission of the building world best football environment for the kids, ensuring that every child across the Denmark can find suitable football offer. So now I would like to ask you, you can think internally also with your colleague, what do you do now? So what could you do in the future to use the principles of the part of the team in your national association? So I give you 1 minute, depends on this information to think, and then I carry on with the next slide. Obviously, the video, what you saw, you can also find at the UEFA community page. So you can see all the videos of the winners. So as well, you can see the details there. But in generally, so as you see, as I mentioned, this project won the last year UEFA Grassroots Award in the disability, the best disability initiative. So if you can go, Helen, to the next slide, please. So now what I'm going to do to provide you a little bit pick up information from the last week discussion in the groups. So thank you very much to everybody for their input, contribution during the discussion. There were disability working group colleagues. They pick up few points from the discussion. So what do you do as an association in order to developing disability football? So as you can see, there are 3 areas of the developing and delivering disability football. So work in the special schools and we're developing the education, inclusive club structure and the competition. So in order to cooperation with the special school and education. So in Norway, they're using the Playmakers, the project for delivering also disability football offer in special schools. Colleagues from Latvia running a regional disability schools festival on a regular basis. And Ukraine Football Association had a strong football in the school program, which providing education courses which are also aimed to the disability football. In order to club structure, Amina from Bosnia and Herzegovina Football as Federation, she mentioned about the club called FK Respect, which is creating positive and inclusive football environment for social cohesion. So this is like club leader for the and the role model for another clubs in the association. The Dutch Football Association have 10% of the clubs who are inclusive. So it's a great numbers of the clubs who are providing the football opportunities for disability players. And Fabio from San Marino, he mentioned in discussion, even in terms of the small number of the clubs, what they have, their ambition in the next 2 years by end of the Grassroots Charter, circle 24-28, is to have at least one person in each club who is responsible for delivering and involving disability players into the football activity in the clubs. In order to competitions, so the Football Association of Wales have increased the number of the teams and players playing in the local competitions. German Football Association has strong cooperation with the Special Olympic, and they're offering the unified football teams to include those with and also the without disability. And another association which had a strong relationship with the Special Olympic is Estonia, and they developed together their competition structure. If we go to the next slide, Helen, please. And on the base of the video from the project from the Danish Football Association. So what you could do as a national association in the future to use the principles of this project part of the team. As you can see, England mentioned from the discussion that their goal is to develop the club accreditation scheme in order to disability provision. So the goal is to, in order to increase the participation, to provide opportunities with maximum 30 minutes travel time for participants, creating opportunities for local club for them to be part of the training session. Faroe Islands had a similar program as Danish FA and they had strong collaboration with Parasport Faroe Islands in order to delivering the session for players with disability. Colleagues from Italian Football Association mentioned that all top teams who are playing in Serie A have teams with disability and they're playing the national competition. And the Swedish Football Association have the mixed teams, but because they had a lot of players, they are grouped by age and various ability. So there was a quick overview from the group discussion, what you've been involved during the last week. Thank you, Helen. Next slide, please. So now hand over to Helen. She's going to talk about tough thought leader influencing upward and those who around you.
I actually think it's me. It's me, Vlad, I think.
Jeff. Okay, Jeff, there you are.
Yeah. So welcome, everybody. Lovely to see you. Thanks for coming on the call. I know many of you in Europe are melting under the intense heat. We're not used to it in England, and it's not very nice. But thank you for being with us today. And I'm delighted to be able to introduce to you all David Faulkner, who is David's been a mentor for me. He's been my line manager at the English FA, and I also count him as a friend for a number of years. When we spoke about a number of issues which you guys wanted to talk about, one of them was about how do we influence those people around us and above us? How do we maybe gain more money to do our programs? And I was talking to Helen and said, well, look, the guy I think will be able to help us with this is David. His knowledge of changing culture within an organisation, high-performing teams, and elite sport is second to none. And I'm absolutely delighted to welcome David here. That picture was taken some years ago, I may add. But I'm delighted to welcome David to our meeting. And hopefully you'll find the next 45 minutes really stimulating, interactive, and you can use some of the key messaging from David's session within your national associations. So David, welcome to the UEFA Disability Football family. We look forward to hearing your thoughts.
Thank you, Jeff, and thank you for the introduction. Helen, if I may, well, actually, before I share my slides, just thank you for the opportunity. Jeff will know, as I show you a little bit of my background, that disability football played a major part in my time at the FA, as well as leading women's performance within that. challenges of influencing inside the governing body as well as outside. And you'll see from my career, the theme of influencing has been very dominant in the recruitment of roles that I've taken part in, within sport, within education, and actually within business as well. So hopefully what I've put together today will be useful, be thought-provoking for you, and just trigger a few things that you can really take away from with you. So yes, it is in Mentimeter. Don't worry, we're not going to get involved in that straight away from that. But yes, there's a little bit of interaction that I would like to put forward. So yes, I'm an Olympic gold medalist, which I'll cover in a minute. My career has covered a number of different areas in Olympic sport, in education, in professional sport, covering the football, and in my latest years, since the Tokyo Olympics, I'm heavily involved in leadership, culture, high performing teams, influencing across education, business and sport. I was a member of the 1988 Olympic gold medal team. This is the men's team. Sadly, we've just recently lost one of our players, Imran Shawani, who is centre at the back there, who was actually younger than me, but sadly fell to dementia. But this group most really led the way in influencing change within our own sport of field hockey. Some of you on the call may not recognise field hockey, but certainly a fundamental part of how I've approached things going forward. I became performance director for England and Great Britain hockey in 2005, when the national governing body went into administration. The men's team only finished 9th in Athens. The women's team didn't even qualify for the Olympics. And this was re-establishing a role in the governing body and bringing them back with levels of confidence, trust, influencing UK sport and Sport England, who Jeff or Helen may have mentioned previously, are funders of sport in this country because they had lost the total confidence in us as a sport. And thankfully, with London hosting the Olympic Games, we were given a really lift up to do that. And the team on the left-hand side of the team that won the bronze medal from the women, the men finished 4th actually, and the women went on to win gold in Rio in 2016. I then moved to education for a period for 4 or 5 years. This was as Director of Sport at Millfield. It's the largest educational boarding school in the United Kingdom. I'd like to reference this. The first time para-athletes were given scholarships and bursaries to the school, in swimming, in athletics, in particular, in equestrian, real seismic change in culture, and actually having para and able-bodied athletes seen on the same platform. And then just before I left, skiing as well, giving them the opportunity to have the same as able-bodied across those Olympic profile sports as well. And as Jeff knows, that's where I thought my career was coming to an end, until I received a phone call from a lady you may have heard of, Baroness Sue Campbell, where she was looking for someone to lead on the development of women's football in the United Kingdom, or England in particular, and I became head of performance of the women's professional game. So that was the leadership and strategic direction of women's high performance. I worked with Phil Neville when he was the head coach with the Lionesses through and up to and including the 2019 World Cup. And I also was team leader for the women's Great Britain team for their first overseas Olympic Games from that. And sitting alongside that role, which Jeff kindly mentioned, was my head of performance for para-football at the Football Association. The reason I've done this as a separate slide and not one, because it did become a bit of a separate role within the governing body. Firstly, those who've been to St George's Park, I always remember it. I'm driving down St George's Park and they talk about the 29 international teams that we have within England, which covered England men, England women, England disability football teams. However, the influence and change within the organisation was still at its early stages. For example, turning up into St George's Park, into the buildings, and no visual photographs of any of the teams, any references to them. It felt like it was an afterthought from that. And I would suggest over that period, really looking, worked very hard influencing the status and the positioning of para-football across not just the technical directorate, but then widely more out onto the normal football landscape that we had. I would say to you, one of the most rewarding, most humble, most fascinating experience I had in attending World Cups and European Cups, in particular across blind and cerebral palsy from that. Anyway, that's enough about me. Let's move on to this session. So what is this session's objectives? When I was asked to look at this, really looked at 4 key areas of what I would try and get out of today's. Firstly, do you really understand the principles of influencing upwards? Okay, we can influence the spheres that we're in day to day, whether that is to get something changed, get something moved, something moved on into another area, or looking to influence upwards to get recognition downwards around what work is being done. Do you clearly identify the key stakeholders and their priorities? So we're looking for that engagement. What are you doing to bring them on board with you? Do you understand their priorities? Do they align with yours? And how do you go about building that compelling case for disability football investment? Where does it make a difference? And finally, practice and refine influencing techniques. Because I bet you there's a number of you on this call who've had major setbacks, especially where there's been conversations where you have got indication that there's going to be some form of investment, sponsorship, presence, and then all of a sudden you get that pushback. How do you deal with that pushback that comes with it? And I just referenced something locally. I'm still president of my hockey club. I've been with the same hockey club for 50 years. We've just been able, with the position of hockey club, but really geographically wise, we're right next to one of the most deprived housing estates in Europe. Free school meals, 74% of the children have free school meals in this housing estate. And we've just been able to get the clothing brand Fat Face to put some investment back into the community. So we invest and we use that investment to pay for coaches to go into primary and secondary schools, to give them an opportunity to play different sports, but also support the school who can't always provide the coaches. So that's been an interesting local experience for me. So why does this matter? Well, disability equals inclusion, opportunity, and growth. I learned that when I was at the Football Association. It has something different. It has something that stands out. It gives opportunity to others that that can change lives, and it can certainly grow. What I also found in my time with the FA and staying in contact with what I'm seeing is that it's quite under-recognised in many football systems. All right, I used the term earlier, the afterthought, or the last thing to think of within it, and really it should be the front runner, because the level of inclusion it provides is a game changer. And I know, working with a number of Sport England national governing bodies, this is a main focus they've got at the moment. And of course, the biggest challenge is you're competing with mainstream priorities for attention and funding. The landscape is changing all the time. Some of you will get government funding, I'm sure, that are on the call. Some rely on commercial funding. The one thing that's been very interesting for me in recent experiences, I do quite a bit of work with American national governing bodies where they have no government funding. So they've had to be creative in supporting all their recent work across Olympic and Paralympic landscape, especially with the Los Angeles Olympic Games on the horizon. So the current state in Europe, in looking at what we've got, so my understanding is there's 54 countries with structured disability football programs. 45% of football associations do not have clear player pathways. And if I was saying something from my last 20 years, having a pathway where talent knows what's expected of them and for a governing body to know what's coming is so vital. Because with that, you can be more strategic, and with that, you can plan for tomorrow. But the growth potential, in double digits in the last 5 years, that's such a positive and strong message. And of course, the one area that all are looking into is the untapped world of sponsorship, corporate social responsibility opportunities, the whole world of CSR that comes from that. So what does that mean about mapping the decision makers? I've identified these 4. There may be others, but of course the obvious move, and most probably your day-to-day focus, is your national football associations. There'll be contacts through the UEFA development committees. But of course, wider than the National Football Association, there's those ministries of sport, and do not forget education. That link back through education. I learned that from my own role, which I described earlier when I was with Millfield School. And of course, the other mapping the decision makings is sponsors and those CSR managers in corporate organizations who are looking to make a difference, looking to make sure that they have a brand in a new world, a new landmarking that they can make with that. But what you've got to understand is what is their priorities, those stakeholders. And what you'll find based on their governing body strategies or their stakeholder strategies, it normally comes in one of these 4 areas. The first is about winning. They're all interested in performance, what medal return there is, what rankings can be gained within the environments that you compete in. Now that could be domestic, that can be continental, that can be worldwide. But you will always get organizations where winning is, they want to be aligned and assigned across winning and performance. The second area is prestige. What profile is this going to bring? Where does it sit within their other areas? Where does this make us stand out from others? Because we've been associated with other elements or other organizations. But for others, and this was why I gave the example of FatFace in the local work that I've been doing, this was all about giving community opportunity, the participation growth, looking to make sure that young boys and girls, whatever background, can play more sport. And then what is that around the social impact and inclusivity? Knowing, so for us to say to FatFace that 74% of children in the local housing environment around our hockey club rely on free school meals. And that really did trigger their new investment now in the community. So it's you understanding that landscape that is so important. And of course, what you have then is you've got to remember there's always this matrix about influencing. So I learned very early, young in life, I'm a go-getter. I knock doors down. I don't try and make sure that people are behind that door and flatten them behind me. I try and pick things up behind. So I'm influencing change all the time. What you need to know is what that level is. Are you spending your time in the right areas? So are your key allies coming under this high power, high interest? Do you know who they are? But also those high power interest in organizations or stakeholders that currently don't have low interest, currently have low interest and are targets for persuasion. How are you going to get to them? And then I've got involved in a number of different areas where actually they're not spending time where they should be. So they have low impact, low power, but they have high interest. So how do you make sure that support network is in place? And then just spend your time monitoring on those who currently have low power and low interest. Why I put this slide in is that you can end up not working on things that make a difference. You could be spending time on areas that are not going to give you a return. And in those leadership roles, in your leadership team, that's what you've got to recognise with that. So, those who've used a Mentimeter, I've put the QR code up onto the screen. I'd be really interested for those on the call, just to give us examples of where you have found some key allies and targets for persuasion. Where have you found it's worked for you? Because in a network like we've got with this call today, it'd be really useful to help others share what you have found. So just give it a minute. If people can pop up, you know, through their phones, through their iPads on the QR code, just examples of key allies and targets they have found that have worked for them to persuade, support, or brought attention to disability football. Once a few are up, I'll show the responses. Thank you. So lovely, brilliant, great suite of examples. So the international impairment specific organisations. So one of the things that I know where Jeff was, and Jeff was really good at this because he'd been with Para GB, Team GB, with previous Olympics, is making sure that you know your parallel work across other sports are aligned. How are they getting funding? How are they getting support? How are they developing their coaches? How are they doing talent ID? So important. And the National Paralympic Committee example that you saw there. Local politicians, it's a great one. So the one I've just given to you about my local hockey club, Alan Mack, the MP, we got him involved fully as soon as he saw that it was involved. And now what we're now finding is that there could be some facility investment coming in to support not just hockey, but for my hockey club to become a multi-sport for able-bodied and parasports. Managing partnerships with the Football Association, spot on, absolutely vital. And of course, working with Football Association, their strategies change. Their opportunities come available within that. I love the person who's put technical director as a key ally. We certainly, Jeff and I will tell you, we certainly had a technical director who really embraced the inclusivity of all international teams across men, women, and disability football. And of course, what happens then is you get someone else who's managing upwards to help with that influence. And I love the one around the board members and members of the SLT, having disability represented at higher level board to ensure when they're having that conversation about inclusivity, and they do, and I sit on, I'm a non-executive on some boards now, making sure that voice is heard at the right time, not just left to one side within it. Public partners such as government, big private company interested in partnerships, yes, all the time. I think that what you've got to find is that unique point, and I'm going to come on to how you go about that. But the levels of persuasion that you have in bringing those your audience to their attention is so key. These will stay on the slide. Some great tips. There may be people, individuals on the call who may have not thought of some of these areas, but you can see how wide it is. But the point I made about the matrix is what you should do from these. Let's say this is let's say we've had a brainstorming exercise. We've thrown all this out. What you should do from this is prioritize where you think the top 1, 2, 3 are where you're going to spend the time. As I said earlier, I've come across too many organizations who do not focus on the areas that are going to make the difference. That's what you've got to really focus about for them. Very good. So barriers to influence, what are they? Well, budget is always seems to be the one that's at the top of the list. Also, secondly, what I found learning in the early days, learning curve, misconceptions about disability football. And do you know that was stronger for me internally within the Football Association first? Because what I had to help Jeff do is stretch that length of influence across the governing body. And I'm not just talking about in the technical directorate, in development, who were also leading in their own areas and doing a fantastic job, but where the two joined up. In comms, in governance, in finance, all the areas that, you know, some say, well, yeah, fine, but it's important that they have that have that profile. And the other area I learned very quickly, there were some unbelievable stories that I came across. Individuals making some I would call sacrifice choices in their lives to really evolve their own disability football career. And of course, the other barriers to influence is risk, where they look at what the risk levels that they come from. And once again, could you share what barriers you've experienced? What if you come across that you go, oh, well, I didn't know that would be a barrier. Or, yeah, that's a consistent theme. Let's have a think about how we put that through. Just give a couple of minutes. Let's just have a look at what barriers you've come across in those where you've approached them to support and influence the progressing of disability football. And I'll leave the responses up now. I think the lack of knowledge is an interesting one from that. I remember, Jeff may remember this as well with CP, where we were looking at how do we widen the base of the talent pool for CP in cerebral palsy. Then to find that when we went out with a communication around England's cerebral palsy programme, that we found a number of individuals with cerebral palsy playing in the able-bodied system, and we'd never even thought about looking in that area to give young people an opportunity. And of course, that's a fantastic story that you have with it. I think that knowledge and awareness are the two focuses that you always must have at the heart of any story you're looking to sell, because people might not know that. I'm going to go back to my example of Fat Face, not knowing the free school meals dynamic on their doorstep with that. So thank you. And again, sharing the misconception of difficulties involving disabled people. Yeah, totally. And knowledge and sharing that knowledge of how you remove those barriers is such a powerful story. Difficult to influence change without being part of senior management. I get that. I do get that. And what you're looking for is those in senior management to become more like agents for change for you. So framing the message is so important. And I have these 3 tips for you. Firstly, learn to speak their language. So sometimes in the corporate world, you'll hear things like key performance indicators, KPIs, return on investment is important to them. Legacy, understand their strategy, understand their direction of where they're going. Secondly, how do you link what you are doing, how you approach it, to their strategy, to their mission statement, to their values? One of the first things I always do when I go into a new organization that I'm working with or supporting, I find out what their values are and where do those values come from. And then you have prepared in framing that message, not just the data behind, like I've just done with free school meals, not just the data, but the powerful human stories that come with it. And I'd like you to think about the 3 C's. How you create credibility with your expertise and evidence, how you create that connection between relationships and empathy, and how you provide that clarity. How simple you can make a compelling ask throughout that. And the credibility one really fits around 3 areas. Knowing your facts, referencing a very powerful success story, and being consistent and reliable in how you put something across. And I think it's the middle one more than anything else, is how you can reference that success story. What has worked for that? What with you being involved, what would that mean to you as a stakeholder from that? And I know, if I may, Jeff, I think we've asked Robin from KNVB just to share a success story that they've used. Is Robin on the call?
Yes,
Yeah,
I'm here.
Robin, hi.
David, thank you for your story. It's very interesting to listen to. Yes, I'm going to share a story of Levi. I will first put a photo of him in the chat, if that will work. No, it doesn't work for me. Can you put the photo maybe in the chat? Then I will start with the story. Okay, I will start with a short story of Levi. Levi uses a wheelchair. He's 14 years old and started playing power chair football at FC Eindhoven last year. A few years ago, we started building power chair football in the Netherlands. It took a lot of work, but stories like Levi show us why it's worth it. Levi's parents told us something that has always stayed with me. On Monday mornings, children are often asked at school, "What did you do this weekend?" For many children, that's an easy question. But for Levi, things changed when he started playing football. Now he can say, "I played football this weekend." He can even say, "I played football and we lost." And he says that with a smile. Not because he likes losing, but because he's happy that he gets the chance to play. He's part of a team. He has football stories to share, just like his classmates. For Levi, football is about much more than a game. His parents have seen him grow in confidence. He's making friends, learning to work with teammates, and learning how to deal with winning and losing. These are important life lessons that football can teach us. And now there's something else. The Netherlands is working on starting a national power chair football team. For the first time, Levi can dream about playing for his country. He can dream about wearing the orange shirt of the Netherlands. Before, that dream wasn't there. Now it is. And that's why it is so important. We didn't just create a football program. We created opportunities for young people like Levi to grow, to belong, and to dream. Thank you.
Robin, thank you. Jeff, you have your hand up.
It's a mistake. Sorry, I didn't mean to put my hand up. What a fantastic story. I was just sitting here and having goosebumps all over me. So well done, Robin. Thank you for that.
Yeah, Robin, thank you. And, you know, listening to you, what theme do I take away? I said the theme I take away is you created a sense of belonging. That's what's happened with that story, and that's the message. That would be a message I most, if I was sitting around with you influencing how to get wider support, is the creation of a sense of belonging. And that's the simplistic piece that you need to make sure that's in your messaging day to day. Creating connection is the most important thing. So finding a common ground show genuine interest in their work. So finding that whoever that stakeholder is, whether it is government, whether it is football association, whether it is commercial, whether it is charity, whether it is another parasport where you find this synergy across, I'm talking Paralympic sports, because there may be benefits of working together, and share those athlete stories. It is the most powerful element of what you have to hand to grow and develop your sport. Achieving clarity, the third C. Sometimes you can get so emotional and passionate, you lose the base of your story. And what you've got to do with being clarity, and may I be quite bold and tough on this, you have to be business-like. You have to stay on. When you ask for your specific, be specific in what you're asking for. Don't try and flower it up. This is what we need it for, because the difference is going to be this. And I'm going to use Robin's example, because we need to create a stronger sense of belonging in the environment we've created. Focus on one clear goal per conversation. So if you've gone in there and you want to make sure there are 2 or 3 things, number 1, we want to achieve this. Number 2, we need to finish this piece of project. Number 3, extra investment will enable this to happen. Be focused and make sure there's no jargon in what you're delivering. All right. Some of these people will be very busy people, and they always say you can never make a first impression a second time. So be very specific on what you're asking, because those individuals, especially have little time, if you have done your research and seen that what you're asking does align with their strategy, you will get traction. It will work for you. And those who've maybe been in football association, in sport associations, you must never forget the case for disability around the virtuous circle. This is your virtuous circle, and you can put storylines together within each of these 4 topics. Economic and community benefits. By you supporting us or being involved with us or providing the resource, this will happen in the community X, Y, Z. We will increase participation. We will get to areas that we've never touched before, and you will change lives, because that links to the social inclusion piece that we've just talked about. And of course, there are many out there that none of us touch. So we need to widen our talent pipeline, widen that reach and stretch and depth of influence. And then what may come with it is the international prestige. In a governing body, they always talk about international success leads to greater participation, leads to commercial income. But in the case with disability football, you've got to remember that those stages and the place where the sport is needs refinement, and very, remember the topic earlier, knowledge. A lot of you said they don't have the knowledge. Give them the knowledge around this virtual circle. Tell them about the community that you work in. Tell them about the areas of inclusion this work does not. Tell them about the talent you're not touching. And tell them what the opportunity might be if we did, and the prestige that comes with it. The data that matters, what you've got to hand, all right? Make sure that you have the participation growth potential. Know your marketplace. Provide them with the knowledge that you all identified earlier in the feedback. Identify what's going to appeal to them. And this CSR piece, where they recognize that it's not all corporate. We're in this world of wider inclusion. What would this investment do to the local community where my business is based, or where the government activities, the different departments need this addition, or the governing body widening their breadth across men's, women's and disability football and having greater integration. I'm working with someone at the moment who works in the talent system of women on the women's side to find that when they included some of the disability programs locally, the reach for the women's game also expanded. So not only did they get the inclusion of disability, all of a sudden they got to talent they hadn't even thought about in the women's game. And of course, the media reach, changing people's lives. You know, when you really change someone's lives, just have a look at where that detail is. And of course, the profile for that stakeholder, the cost of doing something through disability football will be a lot lower than some of the other corporate entities that you have that they would invest in. What specific do you think will appeal? I should be specifically, sorry about my grammar. What specific do you think will appeal to a sponsor? Just share some of your ideas, please, now. Or even share where you've got a successful example. I would say from my experiences, I'm doing some work in England in not just the state independent school sector, but the state school sector. The theme around community change at community level is the real, I'm seeing is the real lever. You know, that social impact that you can have is pretty significant. I'm just conscious of time because I did promise that I would finish on time. Thank you. So storytelling in action is sharing a real athlete journey, show transformation through sport, highlight ripple effects on community. I know, is it Pezic was going to do just a little story tell, 2-3 minutes if we could.
Shemek.
Yeah.
Just checking Shemek is.
If he's not, then I can.
Yeah,
if not, I can move. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'm here. Thank you, David and Helen, for letting me speak for a moment. So yeah, I was thinking how to exactly give an example of storytelling, and I think what worked for me when I was still in the federation was using like very real examples when we wanted to. Actually, it's not collective with disability football, it's more in grassroots. So when we wanted to change the Timber Cup competition to be a school competition, and it's never easy because it's traditionally was for clubs and clubs were participating. So what we did to convince our top management that we actually want to target this project to schools was to pick up some of the stories of the schools that were participating, some smaller schools, but they were not able to go through and show off in the tournament because they were clashing with some selected boys and girls who are already playing in clubs. So we used some of those stories from the local people, local communities that we collected, and highlighted them to our boss. Just saying, you see, those children, they did not have a chance. So maybe through the changes in the regulations, we will give them a chance to compete and participate on a higher stage. And for them, it's probably the only opportunity. So instead of going into numbers and data, which we obviously had somewhere in the back, we went to show the stories of some local schools and children, and it really helped us to create this image of what changes can we make and how we can impact the football environment through the small tweak in the regulations. Just short story from my side to see how using stories was very helpful to actually change some of our programs.
Yeah, thank you. And of course, the theme that you've just mentioned comes from the community level. That's the consistent theme that comes from that. Changing lives, making a difference. So just very briefly, final run in. These are a set of slides that you can take away. You know, you've got to link yourself to wider goals, whether it's the national sports strategy. I had a look at the UEFA social responsibility framework, the strength through unity strategy, just see how you're linking with that. Look at the corporate environmental and social governance objectives that sit around that. Just see how you link with those key elements of the goals of those organizations. And the elevator pitch, all right? What's really important when you are presenting yourself is break it down to these 4 key areas. Who you are, what does disability football offers, why it matters, and what you're asking for. And I know I'm not here really to make it as simplistic as that, but I've seen so many presentations or proposals that get lost because they're too wordy. They're not specific. They're clear. Some of these stakeholders don't have much time. When you get in front of them, make sure you have impact. The elevator pitch is so important. And what you've got to make sure is that you have personal influence goals. What's your top priority? What's your next step? And by when? When you sit down with your leadership team or the group that you support or where you're leading, have that focus. And I've used the term previously, don't waste time on things that are not going to make a difference. What is the top priority that you need to think? What is your next step in doing it and by when? I would recommend you practicing your 90-second pitch. 90 seconds, you know, you can never make a first impression a second time. You know, you've got to get that. Form small groups, choose a stakeholder scenario and craft and deliver your pitch. You wouldn't go on the football field to play a competition without practicing. You shouldn't do anything different in how you're influencing. It's the same thing, all right? And the visual goes along with it. Make sure you have the infographics, the highlight videos, the social media proof. And this is the biggest tip. This was one I was taught 20 years ago in business. Make sure you have a start, make sure you have a middle, and make sure you have an end. Closing off and putting structure around what you want to put forward. And strategic timing is just as important. If you're really prioritizing on a stakeholder and you really think that that's going to work, link it to their budget cycles. Know when their end of year is, when they're going to have an underspend. Align it with your major events or wins, where something that can fit. Show and capitalize on media moments, but always be prepared to flex. Notice I haven't used the word compromise. Flex within it. And you will get setbacks. Listen first. Why did they say no? Learn from that. Reframe those concerns. And even offer a low-risk pilot. Look, I've mentioned this to you too, that this is happening in the community. Would you like to support a one-off event that might be worthwhile supporting? It's amazing what traction you get. As I bring this to a close, the pilot program is always a proof. Start small, show results. Measure impact rigorously and use success to scale up. So if they do back a pilot, make sure you put all your effort and focus around it to show what that impact could be and how it could be scaled up. And then feedback and reflection is always important. It's like debriefing when you finished a football match. What worked? What could be improved? What were your takeaways? Please have some form of structure around you all the time. In our world, and Jeff and I worked together, we had a process called plan, do, review. And it's fundamental in how you should operate as an organization. And the action planning is always Identify one or two key stakeholders, define your specific ask, plan for the next contact step. And it is like running a sales environment. This is what because it may take 2 or 3, 4, 5 attempts to get something to land. And to finish and to stay exactly on 45 minutes, Helen, I will finish with this. Final call to action. If they don't know our story, your story, they can't invest in it. Speak up, show impact, inspire change. What Robin outlined to you in his story, it inspired change. It opened up other doors for that. So thank you. And I will move it to questions.
David, David, thank you so much. That whiz through 45 minutes of great knowledge and great advice. If you've got a question, please put it into the chat function. The guys are looking at it. I wanted to really start by asking you, many of the people on the call, maybe don't have that link into the technical director, or maybe the grassroots manager, or within the CEO of their organisation. How would you do that first initial contact, that first catching their eye that there's something there? Is it that story like Robin said, and I don't know, slipping under their door at night so they read it? But how do you get that first initial contact? Because many on the call may feel a little bit helpless in terms of getting that first initial contact.
Yeah, it's a good question. I think, firstly, knowing the governing bodies or the association's strategy is quite important, and they will have 4 to 6 key pillars within their strategy. What I would be doing first is looking at that strategy and looking at the offer that we provide across the disability landscape, of which pillar that could fit in, and having a look at where the levels of inclusion come into that as well. I had, if you remember right, Jeff, in those early days within the influencing the technical director to make sure that disability teams had an equal voice alongside men's and women's. That's what I did. I converted some of their pillars, the strategic pillars, and played back to them what it meant for blind, for CP, for power chair, etc. So where that fits. So that's one area. The other area is, of course, on grassroots, whether you can get an agent for change, where someone local to you has a link into the governing body and can be and show how their work in the grassroots element can fit with the wider strategy into the National Association. I can think of a couple of things that we had where the local community became an example of best practice for the rest of the association that we've been there. But I'm not going to hide away from it. It's tough. It's tough because your own sport should be in the bathwater with you. That's what you've got to achieve.
Yeah, and we have some great examples around Europe. I mean, Giovanni and his colleagues in Italy, got a really big champion in what was then the president of the Italian FA, banging table saying we really should do this. And, it is that kind of storytelling. Paul McNeil, do you want to ask, you've posed a question, would you like to ask?
Yeah, I'm thank you for that, Jeff. David, that was really good and really insightful. Thank you so much. It's more just a general one. Do you think, and it's probably that journey that probably I've spoke to most people on the call about, but do you think from a football point of view that people maybe think football has money and the disabilities a wee bit more, and people maybe focus on other sports and not football, and it's that challenging one when you go in through the door? Have you seen a change, and is it a positive change or a negative change about trying to get funding into disability sport because people kind of assume wrongly or that football has money, and does that become another challenge maybe that wasn't there 10, 15 years ago? Just curious of your journey through that, David. Thank you.
No, Paul, you're spot on. And the natural tendency is, well, why do you need support from Sport England when football's already got the money? All right. Why doesn't the likes of the Premier League and now the Women's Super League divert money into other areas? And of course, they need to be influenced and pressured on. I think that comes back to the feedback you got earlier. The knowledge piece is so key to get that message across. So in my role with Jeff at the time, and with the women's football, Sport England funded the pathways. I think some of it they may still do, Jeff, but that took considerable time and influence to do it, because the money in football is not necessarily in the governing body; it's in the club system. All right, and it was a huge challenge for football. The same thing. All right. My role in women's football, I was recruited to influence change within the club setup, not, when I walked into the women's teams and it was a high level of discrimination. Here's your money, ex-women's team. See you next year. No work at all in benefit of how that wider integration should come. Now, I've not been close enough to it in the last few years, but certainly ongoing influence of what I would call funding stakeholders, government agencies, is so important. And actually, to give credit to the credit's due, whichever government's been in place, the British government have been pretty good in terms of the development of women's football, if you look at the investment they've made within it. But, Paul, it's hard work. All right, you've got to sit there and think, where are you going to be different to everybody else from that? And I was quite taken back with the investment levels that disability football had versus women versus men. I had these 3 steps, and I sat on the main technical directorate leadership team, so I could see that played out, that scale that came through.
No, thank you.
David, I've got one last question before we thank you and send you off on your merry way. Every federation on the call are beginning to think about the next hat-trick programme. They've all would have had by the next hat-trick cycle 4 years of really great stories around disability football. Is there any sort of extra tip you can give people on the call, particularly those who are leading on disability football, about what they do to get those stories across, to really ensure that disability football is embedded in the next hat-trick cycle, and that it helps them really progress their programs on?
Yeah, good question. And this one's one quite easy for me in terms of what work I do now. Ask yourself, what does good look like? Do you have a North Star that can be appealing to everybody? All right. If I came into any of your organisations, walked down to the corridor to say the photocopier and met 2 members of your team and asked them, what's your North Star? What you're looking to achieve? Will they say the same thing? And does it align with the North Star you set? So do you know what good looks like? Secondly, in your preparation after the 4 years, identify the things that made a difference and drop the things that held you back. It's pretty ruthless, but if you're looking to engage wider stakeholders, focus on working on making on things that make a difference from there. And because those 2 things, knowing what good looks like, only working on things that make a difference, should align to your North Star. Be very clear that when you are moving to your next stage, you know what your North Star is, the rest of the team are aligned to that North Star, and that alignment is helping you have greater impact in whatever community, whatever football association, whatever government agency you want to have. And that's how you stand alongside it.
David, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your messaging, and hopefully, as we've said, all the presentation, the Mentimeter slides will all be on the Grassroots community page in the next couple of days, maybe probably next week. But yeah, thank you and welcome to our community, and we hope we'll be able to invite you again.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity, everybody.
Thank you, David. That was really interesting. Yeah, really very interesting presentation. Now, Daniel has been thinking throughout this session, and he's going to share a few thoughts in terms of a summary. So, Daniel, welcome, and thank you in advance for your summary.
Thank you, Helen, and thank you, David, for a great presentation. A lot of the things that you talked about, David, I can recognize working with the Swedish FA for the last 4 years. We have, we know the data, we know our success stories. I think we also know which are our stakeholders, but we haven't prioritized them. We haven't understand what influenced them. If I would go to the Swedish FA president, he's probably going to say disability football is a great thing. But at the same time, his attention is to the mainstream football and all that comes with that. So the problem, or not the problem, the challenge I think we have in Sweden, we haven't think about the stakeholders, how we're going to prioritize them and how we're going to influence them. We need to create our case with the data, with the success stories, and start to understand what influence our stakeholders. So really appreciate all the insights and the knowledge and experience you have shared, David. And I would just like to say that working with the disability football working group and also within these network sessions, every time the call ends, I think there's always something that we can take with us back to our daily work that can influence us to drive disability football forward within our national association. And I think this opportunity, and also last time when Mikael talked about the collaboration between the different organizations, can help us create a better pathway and a better inclusion for the disability football within the different national associations. So I just want to shortly thank everybody for the opportunity to be here and to really understand or hear about your challenges, but also all the possibilities that we have within our different national associations. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. I appreciate you bringing that to life a little bit, because as you say, that's what it's all about. What do we take away, and what can we change going forward? And David, it was very thought-provoking for me also. You know, it really made me think about the process, but it also made me think about, you know, my ROI. What's the leadership impact that I can make? So thank you personally. Anybody else? Any thoughts, reflections from anyone else in our group today? Okay, well, in that case, it's just a few thanks. Thank you, Vlad, for our look back over session 2. I think it's always important we build and learn and join the dots as we go, as Les would say. Jeff, for your ongoing leadership, you are joining the dots and progressing, and also, you know, helping us to be more ambitious to deal with some of the challenges. David, you know, exceptional presentation, very thought-provoking, a huge amount of content for people to think about. Robin, thank you for Levy's story. Always the most powerful part of all of these meetings for me, hearing the personal stories and seeing the pictures and seeing the smiles on the faces of players. Shemik, thank you for also sharing your real life story. I think you know, the Timbuk Cup and how you positioned that was you know, very insightful for people. Daniel, you're bringing everything to life. Thank you for that. And finally, everybody on the call, you know, for your ongoing commitment the work that you do, the comments you put in the chat, and what you take away and do differently from here. So, yeah, thank you all. I hope you enjoy the rest of the World Cup. I know it's painful for some, you know, brings joy for others, and for the neutral, it's been quite a spectacle. So, yeah, thank you all so much, and we will see you in a few weeks' time.
Yeah, bye all. Thank you.
David, thank you
Bye-bye.
again for that excellent
Thank you.
presentation. Bye bye.
Thank you all. Thank
Thank
you.
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 Thank you.